Hello everyone, in this video I'll be showing you the best stasis build for Harlowe in Borderlands 4. Now stasis is really meant for general mobbing, similar to Maya in Borderlands 2. It really does shine there. It's not the greatest at bossing, but you can see we can actually get our action skill back almost immediately here using certain weapons and get infinite ammo with this. It's kind of silly and interesting, but you can send the boss flying occasionally like that, making it actually an enjoyable playstyle. It does have some gear that works really well and others that are just a little bit better than others, so I'll be breaking out all of that in this video. The Scientist class mod helps it a lot because we can use shock weapons and also radiate enemies to get massive boosts from our skill tree. And then we can use things like a cryo stray, Katagawa's Revenge there, a complex root, or convergent shotgun and get our action skill back immediately. This also works well with blues and purple weapons, because we're going to be using the blue skill tree here, getting bonus cryo damage on every source of damage, and then things like the unstable isotope adding further damage and lifesteal with our cryo damage so we can sustain our health, and this will also apply to overshields. Once we go into the green skill tree, there's actually a lot of really difficult decisions, but getting critical funding will allow us to keep our magazine full. We can only get 2 points in here because we also want to use the excited state to get automatic critical hits. After using our action skill, which you saw, we get back pretty much immediately. Now to get through the full build from levels 1 through 50, the first one we want to grab is the parallel circuit. Since, again, we got our action skill back quickly, this gives us plus 30% damage. This is huge because that's 30% extra damage applied 5 times on things like the bod gun, but overall, extra damage is always nice. And once we get down to level 5, we need to take 1 point here to get the precision engineering, which gives increased gun handling. And we're going to put the rest of the points into the periodic table flip. Only put 4 points in here. I got a +1 from the class mod. This gives us extra elemental damage, status effect, and cryo effectiveness, which does impact the amount of damage it will deal. This also allows us to take the cryo dynamics here, increasing our cryo damage. I also have the ripple effect from a class mod. However, this is really good if you entangle an enemy and you will automatically entangle another enemy. With this, you can actually take another one. It'll entangle 2 or 3 enemies total for one entanglement, which is really good because we got a lot of benefits from this. However, we don't need more than 1 skill point. We actually get more damage going into this here. Since we're getting a lot of critical hits, the precision engineering 30% extra damage is actually quite huge. And there's some other ones that are nice, like this gives us our action skill back, but we have limited points we can spend, so we're going to put 2 into the cryo damage there. You can take 1 point out of the critical hit and put it into the cryo dynamics here, but I found higher damage from the precision engineering. Now, the Augment is actually going to be the strange attractor here, which works very well. So whenever we entangle an enemy or use our action skill, it'll actually make it so that when we shoot enemies, the bullets will ricochet off and hit the person that we have in stasis, and critical hits on an enemy, they automatically become entangled. So we're doing lots of crits. We're going to entangle lots of enemies. You can later take cold storage, which does benefit some of our other abilities here, but from inertia and cold storage, I found that the strange attractors worked a lot better on this build. Cold storage does have some synergy with the green skill tree. However, once we get down here, this is actually interesting. So keep ice on that's huge. So all cryo damage we deal gets lifesteal. And if our health is full, we get overshield instead. And the overshield amount is huge. This is actually crazy. And then we're going to take 1 more point into the unstable isotope. So a kill skill, we get bonus cryo damage with all sources. In boss fights, you're going to have a lot of extra adds that you can fight. This gives extra cryo damage on all sources. And we get, again, lifesteal and a lot of extra benefits. So we want to have both of these here. These are okay, like this will leave a hazard, which kind of suck in this game. This one, whenever we deal cryo damage with an action skill, there's a chance to freeze that enemy. This can be nice, but it's a little bit tricky. We do get that extra damage from all sources on here, but I found this one a little bit more challenging to take. You can go with 1 point in it because we don't need the full keep ice on that. Like, we're getting enough lifesteal. We don't need any more, in all honesty. And this one here isn't really that great either. It's very similar to the previous one. So my preferred way to go doing this is getting that 35% extra damage after we get a kill for 8 seconds. This gives us 35% extra cryo damage, giving us lifesteal too, but we also have guns that are going to do that as well. And then the flash freeze. Once we get down here, we take our capstone, the cold plunge. So whenever we slam an enemy, we create a singularity on that enemy followed by a cryo explosion, dealing a good amount of damage. And this does increase the cooldown, but that's fine because we get it back so quickly. Now the triple point's tricky because we do want to get other skill trees, but I really like this one. This is one of the few final ones beside a capstone that's worth grabbing because we get bonus 15% non-cryo damage on all damage, huge, and then a 30% on top of any normal cryo damage that we deal. So this becomes actually a massive boost to our DPS. Next, we're going to go into the flux generator here. And there's 2 really good choices right level at the start here. Main's hum is actually really good. Since we get lifesteal on overshields, this gives us 50% extra overshield and 25% extra shield. We become unkillable at this point. It's actually really fun. However, whenever we entangle an enemy, we and our allies deal additional critical hit damage, up to 25% extra critical hit damage. If you're playing with friends, momentum is a little bit better. If you're playing solo, main's hum's better for the survivability aspect. Once we get here, we actually have 3 good ones. This one's great if you're playing with friends, increasing reload speed for every entangled enemy. However, neutron decay whenever you irradiate an enemy, and just to remind you, we do have ways to irradiate enemies with a lot of different damage types. This gives us plus 10% damage per stacks at level 5, which gives us plus 50% gun damage. Again, 50% gun damage is applied 5 times to the bod, becoming crazy. Getting increased cryo efficiency is nice. However, we're going to be doing a lot of irradiation damage bonus, so this is actually worth taking in a lot of ways because this gives us a big boost to our overall damage. And the synergies combine here. So confirmative reality is huge. This is how you saw me get my action skill back immediately. The convergence shotgun, Katagawa's revenge, you pretty much get your action skill back immediately. You only need 2 points and you don't even need the 3rd point for the 1.5 times. I found this to be more than enough. And then we're going to put our last 3 points here into the creative overflow. We deal increased gun damage when we have overshield. The more overshield we have, the bigger the bonus. We have overshield often, so this is really good. This gives us a massive boost to overall DPS. It's actually crazy. Now, once we get down here, we want to get the critical funding here. This can be nice. This gives us bonus radiation damage based on the amount of damage that we deal. We drain our shields, so this can be good, but it does reduce the amount of overshield that we do have, so this can actually impact some of our other abilities, but it's good because that actually impacts the neutron decay. However, we do want to take 1 stack of Excited State. This is good too if you're going to be you could actually put all 5 points into this. I just like getting the critical hits refund bullets because 1 point here will give us an automatic critical hit whenever we use our action skill, which we get back immediately. This also lets us go here. You can take 1 point here. You don't have to take any points and then put the rest of them into this skill tree here to take us down to the critical funding. So every time we get a critical hit, we'll now get 2 ammo added back to our gun. This is actually really nice. It does have a 50% chance of happening, but yeah, you can actually get this to trigger multiple times with specific guns, so it's worth taking. Now, what's nice is the scientists will now allow us to do radiation whenever we do shock damage, which is great because we then get a 10% damage boost every time we deal damage. So that's a plus 50% gun damage pretty much immediately. And whenever we entangle an enemy, electric arc shootout from that enemy at nearby enemies. This also gives us a plus 20% damage dealt, a great multiplier, and splash damage increases as well, which pairs with some weapons greatly. Now, you can also add in something else. There's purple class mods like the radiologist here, which will give you really good boost to your skills. This one, you can get a variety of different skills. This will give us extra radiation damage. The reactor is nice too, giving yourself 2% extra movement speed every entangled enemy. And then once you get 10 stacks, you get 20% gun damage and a bunch of extra effects. This one can be really good, but I found the shock scientist being better. This one's okay. Biorobot will leave hazards, which can irradiate and do a bit of damage, but hazards kind of are not great in this game. And the Skeptic class mod actually makes a lot of sense here. Whenever we slam an enemy in stasis, we automatically fire radiation darts and cryo darts at home and down enemies. Shooting enemies with an active skill, a status effect restores 5% of action skill cooldown. So this one could be really nice too. The Scientist allows you to shock enemies and get the radiation damage off on them as well, but we can also drain our shields and get that. So either of these work well. This will increase your skill damage and stasis damage. This one just increase overall damage dealt. It really depends on the overall rolls that you get. Look between the two of these and try. They both work well. And actually what works really good on top of this is since we get a bunch of bonuses to cryo damage, the fireworks cryo version is crazy because when we take out enemies, it's going to have the homing attacks. This is really good, especially if you can find one that has cryo resistance, because those will release cryo missiles. Whatever damage type you resist will be that damage type you get. There's also good to get the Cinder Shelly. This makes you really tanky. I'm also a big fan of the Protein Cell because we get over shield from our gun damage, and you can do a slam on the ground. You get 40% extra shock damage, and that shock damage will also apply if you were to have the class mod there. So this can actually have a lot of synergy. Otherwise, the Watts Sprinter is great too because this will also give you over shield, which gives you bonus shock damage, which again, it combos all together very well. For enhancements, you want to find one with the Jacob's License Bounce Pass. This gives you an extra ricochet. Since we're going to be using guns that actually stack very well with us and have the Jacob's License accessories like Katagawa's Revenge, the Complex Rude Sniper, Conversion Shotgun, and the Stray, this actually is a very synergetic one. However, you can find some other ones that have boosts to your gun damage. Those are good too because some of them actually have some nice passives. You don't need the Bounce Pass, but it is worth taking. We also like to take the critical hit knife. You don't need the critical hit knife. I just want to mention that now, but this obviously is a big boost because that guarantees critical hits, which gives us our ammo back. I also like to take the Atling gun with cryo damage on it. This one's pretty fun. Huge damage. I also enjoy like the block burst or the waterfall grenade being a really solid one. If you can get in cryo is great. And then also if you can get a singularity knife, those are great too. But obviously critical hit knife pretty strong. And the triple bypass with an amp, 200% boost your damage. And also with the specialization we'll get to in a moment, the now with caffeine, let's let you get it back immediately. However, you don't really need that on this build because we get our action skill back so quickly. This weapon's Stray with cryo damage is massive. I really like this one because it'll auto aim. You can play almost AFK with this. Look for the Ripper parts so that you can get the automatic ammo. The Cov parts are not good, so no, you don't want the Cov parts on any of these weapons. Same thing with Katagawa's Revenge. It can come with Cov parts. We want to get the Hyperion if possible, but the Jacobs is the #1 role. And look for a large magazine size because that gives you more leeway when you're firing the gun. We also have the complex root here. This one actually, it's nice because this gun shoots through 3 ammo per shot. This one shoots 1, so you can actually replenish your ammo really quickly. You'll go through Katagawa's Revenge a little faster, but this one will actually end up staying full. And if you can find a shock and cryo one, that's going to be the best roll for this build. And the convergence shotgun is fantastic because, again, it shoots multiple projectiles, which gets you your action skill back quickly. With the shock one, with the Ray class mod, it can be pretty crazy. I'll show 2 different variations in the combat of using the Watch for Dinner and the Fireworks, depending on what class mod we're using. The Age on stream is also pretty fun. With this gun, it critically hits and bounces around to multiple enemies. Wombo combo is great against any Vile type enemies because of the rockets that blow up. The Chaosin is also very good on this build because every extra bullet that you get on an enemy will mean that you deal 3% extra damage. If you get a ton of these on the enemy and switch between your firing modes, you can basically destroy bosses immediately. Burt's Bees with a taser, also really good, swapping to the taser and swapping back. That's likely going to get patched, however. Plasma Coil, also really fun and good weapon. And if you can find a Rainbow Vomit with specifically cryo, radiation, and shock, that's going to be your best shotgun. Now with combat, I'm using the Stray cryo damage version here. We get our action skill back quickly depending on the gun. Now this is shooting 3 bullets, so this will be a little bit slower. So with things like this gun here, you may want to use Katagawa's Revenge if you want to get your action skill back immediately because it is a little bit slower here. But you can see pretty decent damage even though we're in Ultimate Vault Hunter 5. Now with Katagawa's Revenge, this is obviously a very powerful gun because then you get your action skill back immediately because those little shocks will count as triggering it. So you can see there now we can spam our action skill, getting it literally back immediately and firing infinite bullets. Then we can swap to our shotgun here, and certain ones with the grenade spread launchers can be really crazy, especially if you do something like that. You can see there sending the boss off flying. That was the Looming Dullahan spread launcher, by the way. I also got to talk about the specializations here. Now, we want to get the best defense because we're going to have high health often, so 30% extra damage is really nice. We don't actually need the Now with Caffeine. I did mention it earlier, however, we get our action skill back so quickly, it's almost not necessary, but one that we do want is Riddle You This. Every time we fire a gun, we're getting upwards of 50% extra damage once this gets full stacked, which is a huge boost to our damage. Again, gun damage boosts get applied crazy to things like the bod. Now, we can also, since we get our action seal back so quickly, take Tripwire. This is like the only build where I'd actually recommend taking this because we're going to get our grenade back quickly because we get our action back skill quickly. So this can actually be pretty synergetic. However, you don't need to take this. You can go to some of the other benefits to Ordnance damage or actually put on some extra action skill damage buffs, although I don't find them too necessary. Also, the Bullet Train can be nice, giving us 50% extra gun damage when we're walking, and you can actually run around and sprint more with this build. And I also like the Groundbreaker because we can actually store up our damage, then go in and do a melee attack and do pretty crazy damage. However, this may end up getting nerfed. Now, with guns like the Plasma Coil, which are a little lower in overall damage, they can still do some pretty crazy stuff. On bosses, just be mindful that Stasis is obviously not meant to be doing... isn't meant to be able to lock down bosses with your stasis, so that's something to keep in mind. It's not going to be like the one fix-all for everything. It's obviously best utilized in just general mobbing builds, but this is the best that you can do with it because it actually does do a pretty respectful amount of damage, especially if you're using the Katagawa's Revenge, giving yourself the action skill back quickly, and then you can just continually keep activating it. I think Katagawa's Revenge is the best weapon for this because you can get your ammo back pretty much infinitely because the action seal is going to give you those free critical hits, which recover your ammo. If you got Overshield, you can use the I Got. As you can see here, this is draining our shield, but we can actually keep the ammo infinite here, which is kind of funny. Although the damage output's not great unless you're going against shields. It's just cool to be able to get the infinite ammo from this because we have the shields there proccing this. Pretty funny, but not really crazy damage as you can see there. And the Rainbow Vomit, obviously getting some pretty crazy damage output as well. You can obviously do more with her red and green skill tree, so I'd encourage you to check out those builds as well, because I do have some pretty powerful builds on those. They're much stronger than this. I just wanted to take a challenge because this was the hardest to build around, and I think that using the green skill tree with the blue works out best. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Hit the subscribe button below if this video is useful, and I hope you have a great day.